Good evening. I'm Al Jackson. I serve on the board of the Middle Resolution, and I am sitting in the campaign office of candidate for Attorney General for the state of Virginia, John Adams. Grateful to be here. We're here this evening to endorse Mr. Adams to win this race in November. We want him to be the next Attorney General for Virginia. We've interviewed all the candidates, and they're all great and wonderful people, and we appreciated their time, but we found, John, that because of you and who you are and the fact that you've got a strong commitment to individual liberty, you respect and honor the United States Constitution, and you've got an incredible campaign staff, and you've got what it takes to win in November, and we're happy to endorse you this evening. So thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you so much. This is a big deal for me, and very humbling, and I really appreciate it. And thank you all for watching. One of the reasons this is important to me is, as Al said, this is not something that Middle Resolution does lightly. You do interviews, thorough interviews, and so it matters to me that you all care enough to get together, to do thorough interviews, to talk to the candidates, to really investigate what they believe in. And so this means a lot to me, and I really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you for saying that. So why don't you introduce yourself? Tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, my name is John Adams. I was born and raised here in Virginia, in Chesterfield County, and graduated from the Virginia Military Institute in 1996, and then served as a naval officer for about 4.5 years, and then went to law school at the University of Virginia. And since then, I've spent most of my life in public service, but as you know, I've never run for office before. This is the first time I've ever done anything quite like this. So I served as a law clerk to Clarence Thomas on the U.S. Supreme Court, served as a lawyer in the administration of George W. Bush at the White House, and I've been a federal prosecutor here in Virginia. But, you know, over the past 6 years, I've been in private practice. And as you said, I care a great deal about our Constitution. I care deeply about the rule of law. And over the last 4 years in Virginia, we've had an attorney general who, in my opinion, has not handled that office in the way it should be handled. And so I decided to seek public office. And a lot of my friends thought maybe I'd fallen, hit my head, had gone a little crazy. But it turns out I knew it was the right thing to do. And you mentioned my campaign team. We have a great staff, a great team, a lot of energy. In fact, I'm also happy to announce tonight that early next week, we will be turning in somewhere between 14,000 to 15,000 signatures to qualify for the ballot here in Virginia.
Well, you only need 10,000 to turn in.
Yeah, you only need 10,000, but I'm a lawyer. We double and check everything, and everything's going to be good.
Right.
And that's another humbling thing when you think, I've never run for office before, and announcing only a year and 2 months ago to think that many people would volunteer for us. And I want to thank our volunteers who did that. It's an amazing undertaking, and so we're really thrilled to be doing that this week.
Wonderful. That's great. You're running for the right reasons. That's why we like you so much. So I have a question for you. First of all, how's the campaign going? And you have crisscrossed this whole great Commonwealth and have met with a variety of people, many people. And is there one instance that you can recall that has really highlighted and captured why this race is so important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. There is. It's a great question. And for people who've been out on the trail, I tell this story sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. About 3 months into the campaign, we were at the Republican committee meeting down in Portsmouth, Virginia. And as the meeting broke up, a series of people came up to ask me questions. And one gentleman came up to me, and he was, I don't know, maybe in his 50s, had salt and pepper hair and a ponytail, kind of hung down pretty far in his back. He had several tattoos. And he came up to me and he said, I have a question for you. And I said, absolutely, I'd love to hear your question. And he said, how do you feel about substantive due process?
Wow.
And it really took me back. I haven't been asked that question since I was in law school. And so we talked about that a little bit. Then he said, well, I have a second question for you. How do you feel about the incorporation of the Bill of Rights against the states? And I said, okay, I said, all right, time out for a minute. I said, buddy, who are you? And he said, well, I'm a welder in the shipyard. And me and my friends have been wondering over the last several years why nothing ever seems to go our way and why we feel like no one listens to us.
Wow.
And one of the guys in the shipyard said it's the Constitution. They're not following the Constitution anymore. And so this welder and his friends went out and bought books on the U.S. Constitution. And he was asking me the kind of questions that law professors debate and ask students, and judges debate and wrestle with. And that was important to me because I think that moment typified that sense that we have in the country right now, where the American people and folks in the Commonwealth of Virginia feel like the government's not serving the people anymore. The people feel like they're serving the government. And that's just not the way our system was designed. And so if I can do my part as the Attorney General of Virginia to return the rule of law, to allow the people to govern themselves the way they see fit by enforcing the laws they pass, by being their lawyer and serving them, then I'll feel great if I can do my part in that way.
That's great. Also highlights the importance of having an educated and informed citizenry, doesn't it?
It does. Absolutely, it does.
That's great. So that's a good segue into the next question I want to ask you. You were on CNN recently extolling the virtues of Neil Gorsuch, who is President Trump's candidate to serve on the United States Supreme Court.
Absolutely.
And you called him an originalist. Tell the audience, first of all, what is an originalist? Why is that so important? And how does that pertain to this race for Attorney General?
Sure. Well, and let me just say, Judge Gorsuch, I know him a little bit, not super well, but I know him a little bit. We both clerked, before you clerk on the Supreme Court, so before I clerked for Justice Thomas and before he clerked on the Supreme Court, we both clerked for the same judge, Judge David Santel in Washington, D.C. Okay. And so we know each other through that sort of group of folks. And really, if you boil it down to its most basic level, what being an originalist and a textualist means is, as a judge, you work hard to understand what the language and intent of the drafters were of the Constitution, and then to apply that to the modern world. So it doesn't mean that the law stays old. The law applies to new technology, to new inventions, but the underlying principles are the same. And the reason it's important is this, Al. If we don't interpret the Constitution the way it was ratified by the states, the understanding of the drafters, the understanding of what that is. In other words, if you look at the other side, people who say it's a living document, it's living, it changes, it evolves.
Right. And why are you trying to kill it if it's a living document, right?
If the Constitution is living, who decides what it means? 9 unelected judges decide what it means. Well, that doesn't sound like representative democracy to me. If it's evolving and changing, the only people who get to decide what that evolution has been are unelected judges. And that can't be the way our system works. Because as I say on the trail, men and women have died so that we can govern ourselves the way we see fit. And that's just not the way that our system is designed. That pertains to the Attorney General's office in this way, the underlying principle. The people of the Commonwealth of Virginia deserve to govern themselves in the manner they deem most appropriate. When through their legislators and their governor they pass laws, they have a right to have that law defended by their servant Attorney General. There's undeniably a role for the Attorney General to advise the General Assembly, to advise the executive agencies, and guide them on what the right path is. But once the people act through their legislature, the Attorney General needs to respect that and defend their decisions.
Okay, good. I want to ask you another question. I would assume, John, that you would say your greatest accomplishment to this point in your life is what you and your wife have been able to do to raise those 4 active, healthy, energetic, vivacious boys. So I want
active, energetic.
That's
Yes,
right. So what do they think about you running for Attorney General? And second of all, how does this race pertain to those kids that are growing up in Virginia?
Sure.
Starting with your own boys.
Yeah, so my boys are Thomas, Daniel, Andrew, and Henry, and I think they're watching right now, so they should be going to bed soon. But, Thomas is 12, Daniel is 9, Andrew and Henry are 6 and 4, so they're not quite there. They just know Dad's not home very much, which is a very painful cost of this process. The older boys understand it, and they're supporters, but they also bear the brunt of me being gone. And so I'll tell this story on my 12-year-old who said this the other day, which is pretty scary stuff when you think about it. He said, well, Dad, I said, how are you doing with it? Because I talked to my guys. I said, how you doing with it, Thomas? I know I'm gone a lot. And he said, well, Dad, you better win.
Wow.
And I thought, man,
Wow.
if that's not pressure,
That's great.
if that's not
Well,
pressure.
he understands the gravity of this.
He does understand the gravity of it. And in your question about all the sort of youth in Virginia, for me, this election is not about little things.
Right.
It's not about one particular issue. It's not about one particular thing. It's about big things. It's about our structure of government. It's about governing ourselves the way we see fit.
Right.
It's about the people's decisions being honored and respected by their lawyer.
Right. That's great, because one of our big priorities at Middle Resolution is choice in education. Parents should be able to decide how they educate their kids and where they educate them. And so you'll be Attorney General. You're going to win in November. How will you be able to, from that position, preserve that right and protect the parents' right to do that?
Yeah, it's one of the most important things that we have as parents is what really is more important than how you raise your children and how you educate your children. And as you look at me, I was educated by the citizens of Virginia from kindergarten through law school. I went to Robius Elementary, Robius Middle, Midlothian High School, VMI, and UVA for law school.
Right.
That worked for me. It worked for my family. My kids are in public school. My wife went to a Catholic school. My view is that right that parents have to educate their children must be honored. The best thing that the Attorney General can do is first work with the General Assembly to make sure that as they're crafting our education options, they're done in the manner that is most likely to survive any type of a legal challenge.
Very good.
And then support the decision that is made by the citizens of Virginia. But we will all thrive when we have outstanding options for parents, whether they want to homeschool their kids, whether they want to send them to religious schools, private schools, public schools, charter schools. That's how we're going to thrive as a society.
Hallelujah. That's great. You've been wonderful. Thank you for taking the time. We are so excited to be able to endorse you tonight. You are a qualified candidate. You're going to do some great things. We're going to do whatever we can to help John Adams get elected. I'm going to give you the last word before we say goodnight.
Sure. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to all the folks at Middle Resolution for your trust. That means the world to me. I want to thank all of our supporters who tuned in to watch tonight. And I think this is just the first of many good things that are going to happen over the course of 2017. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
You bet.
All right.